For more on Macron's visit and relations between China and France, let's bring in Klaus Larres, Distinguished Professor of History and International Relations at UNC Chapel Hill. Klaus, first of all, great having you. Second, after the Macron and Xi meeting, what changes for China and France?
I wouldn't say that many changes have occurred because of that visit, but it was a successful visit. It was Macron's fourth visit to China during his presidency, which is quite a lot of visits. Most people only visit once or twice during their presidencies or prime ministerships. So that, of course, indicates that Macron values the relationship with China a lot, and vice versa, that China is very interested in having good relations with the French. No major deals were signed. 12 deals were signed, but they were not of a totally major way. And I think the French probably hoped that bigger economic deals could be signed. That hasn't happened. There was some panda diplomacy. There was some education diplomacy, because Macron gave a very successful speech at CGTN University. The students really liked him and applauded him a lot. So it was a successful visit, but I think the outcome so far is more in the realm of diplomacy, of getting on well, rather than in the realm of really signing many economic deals.
And Klaus, France keeps talking about strategic autonomy. Is that some code word for, like, we like the US, but we also want Chinese electric cars and relations with China?
In a way it is. Strategic autonomy really means that France is pushing Europe to become more independent of the United States. And that, of course, has become particularly relevant during the Trump administration, because Trump is putting quite some pressure on Europe. You know, trade relations are not as good as they used to be. There have been plenty of tariffs on Europe. Also, security relations are less close than they used to be. And Trump is putting a lot of pressure on Europe to increase their defense and security dimensions, and France is in the forefront of that movement to make Europe more independent from the United States. And that is, of course, something which President Xi appreciates. You know, China wants to see a more independent Europe, a less close relationship between Europe and the United States. So France is a country Xi probably thinks is one of the most important countries within Europe. Together with Germany and Italy, it is the most important country in Europe. So nourishing relations with Macron is making a lot of sense.
So let me understand this correctly. Do you see this France-China friendliness as a genuine realignment?
Yes, in a way it is a realignment, but of course one shouldn't overlook there's also tension not just between France and the United States and Europe and the United States, but also between France and China and Europe and China. There are also economic problems, there are security problems, there are challenges in the relationship between China and Europe, including France. And such a visit by Macron is meant to iron out some of these challenges at least. And I think both sides, China and France, want to increase the intensity of their relationship. And of course, what France in particular wants is better economic relations, better trade relations with China. France is in a very difficult position at the moment. And Macron personally is very controversial in France. France has a deep economic crisis, has a deep social crisis. Macron himself has been weakened by the recent parliamentary elections and the downfall of several of his prime ministers. So I guess Macron's visit to China is also meant to increase his credibility and his image in France. Every state visit, in a way, also has a domestic dimension. It's not just a foreign policy dimension. There is a clear domestic dimensions to France's visit to China, because he wishes to become or to be seen as an international statesman around the world, and certainly within France itself.
And Klaus, China says it wants deeper cooperation with Europe. Is France becoming Beijing's favorite entry point?
Well, perhaps, but what China has to do is to negotiate with the EU Commission, because trade deals, that is the prerogative of the EU Commission. Individual European countries have delegated their trade power to the European Commission. And I think one explanation why there weren't any big economic deals signed between Beijing and Paris today was that China is negotiating at the moment with the European Commission. So they want to have some bargaining chips. They don't want to give everything away by signing deals with France. One good example is airplanes. France is most interested to sell Airbus planes to China, but China has hesitated to sign such a deal because they want to use it as leverage in their negotiations with the EU Commission. And that is perfectly understandable, but for Macron that must have been a little bit disappointing, because these big economic deals he was unable to sign, as China wishes to use it as leverage with the EU Commission. Probably Macron knew that, of course, but he probably also had the hope that some big economic deals could be signed. Still, his visit was successful. He certainly increased his image as an international statesman, and some minor deals were signed, and also the relationship between China and France has certainly become improved and has certainly stabilized.
Klaus Larres, thank you so much for your insights.